Good Wednesday afternoon and welcome to 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero with you for just an hour and a half today. We are off early because of K-State men's basketball as the Cats take on the Butler Bulldogs and one of the best mascots in all of sports, Butler Blue. Coming up today, 5:30 tip-off, 4:30 pregame on the K-State Sports Network, which means we're done at 4:30 today. That's an early tip. I guess that's 6:30 Eastern time, but that is an early tip. So we will be out of here early. We've got a lot to get into the next hour and a half here on the program, and we would love for you to be a part of today's show as well. Hit us up on the Big O Tires text line, 785-272-9429. Also, you can jump into the YouTube comments, youtube.com/@ Sports on 580. That is the YouTube channel handle. You can just search for Sports on 580 WIBW on YouTube as well. That is where you can find the live stream of the show.
Very rare live stream today, one in which I am not wearing a hat.
Yeah, no hat. I didn't realize that until now.
Got a haircut this morning. Had to let it breathe.
Yeah, I didn't want to get the little hairs in there.
Yeah, you can't have that.
I will always wear a dark hat when I do that because I don't want to take it off and there's hair all over.
Right.
Because then I get all weird and I got to vacuum it out. It's a whole thing.
Yeah, the lint brush can take care of that. We have those all over the house because we have two cats.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Those things are omnipresent when you have two cats, especially two cats that shed the way Annie and Zoe do. Yeah, it's cool. They just leave a whole other cat behind every time they sit anywhere for longer than 5 minutes.
So if you want to check out the live stream, it is on YouTube. It also streams on Twitter, by the way. You can watch it on Twitter. So if you don't have a YouTube account, you can just watch it on Twitter. It is tweeted out every time we go live. It pops up right on our Twitter feed if you follow us. If you don't, you should follow us at Sports on 580 on Twitter. But by the way, in case you're like, I'd love to subscribe on YouTube, but I don't know if I have an account. If you have a Google/Gmail account, you also have a YouTube account. It's all the same. It's all owned by the same corporation. So if you've got a Gmail account, you've got a YouTube account, just head over to YouTube, subscribe to us, and we would greatly appreciate it. You'll know when all of our live streams are on for 580 Sports Talk, for Mic'd Up, when we do post-game recaps from events. All that is live on our YouTube and live streaming. Coming up here in this next hour and a half today, we're going to look at the new signings for the Chiefs, how they fit, how quickly they might be able to acclimate to the Chiefs. We're talking Brandon Williams. We're talking Brian Edwards. We're talking Melvin Gordon. What kind of impact that group can have. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. We'll also play One Gotta Go this hour. And 1 hour earlier than normal, Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com is going to join us for our Azura Credit Union Wildcat wrap-up, joining us early because we are off today at 4:30 when normally we'd be talking to Fitz. We'll also get to the final word, and we've got a brief edition of our 580 Sports Talk headlines brought to you by Blue Dot of Kansas. Although those headlines are going to be dominated by the All Big 12 team, which just came out moments ago. Good year for KU and for K-State.
K-State with the offensive lineman of the year and the defensive lineman of the year, which is pretty cool.
And overall defensive player of the year, I believe, for Felix Anudike-Uzomah. Awesome for both. KU actually did get a first-teamer, which is very cool. 4 second-teamers, extremely cool. So we'll get to all that coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. We will talk about all those honorees from today. Also, some big soccer drama, some World Cup drama right as we were going on the air. I should say we almost had true chaos at the World Cup, then Mexico allowed a late goal to Saudi Arabia.
Can only imagine how
itself.
disappointed friend of the program Paul Carr is to not have the ultimate chaos scenario in which a name is literally drawn from a hat as to who gets to go on to the next round of the World Cup.
I saw someone joke on Twitter, I was telling you about this, that they joked if it had come down to that point, they would have pulled a name out of the hat and it would have just said Qatar as opposed to Mexico or Poland, just because that's kind of what FIFA does. Very happy for my heritage country, Poland. As you know, I'm big on all things Polish, all things Polish national team. So roll Poles, I guess. I was joking about that with
Pole Tide?
Yeah, Pole Tide. Pole damn Tide. I was telling Fulton and Jake as we were switching studios between shows at the top of the hour, Not only do I not have like any connection to my Polish heritage except for my last name, like literally none. Like we don't even make Polish sausage at home when I go home. Like there's just no connection at all. There's a certain word. I don't know if I can actually say it. I think I technically can, but I don't really want to. But everyone's heard it. It's technically a slur. It's a derogatory word for someone of Polish descent.
Yep, I know which one you're thinking of. I think most people probably do. You don't have to say it. We can all hear it.
I did not know that was derogatory until I was in college. Like I literally I grew up around a lot of Polish people. I'm from Chicago, a lot of them. My dad's Polish. His relatives are. I had no idea that was derogatory. And then I said it out loud one time when I was at KU, and someone was like, "Oh my God, why did you say that?"
Right.
Like, well, I don't know. That's what you call us, isn't it? No,
no, it's not.
Like, oh,
not politely.
Whoops. So I was not at all aware of that. I don't know. One parent was Polish, one wasn't. I don't know. I don't know why, but yeah, not exactly in touch with my Polish heritage, but congrats.
How did they become the ethnicity that it was like cool to make jokes about? Not that it was ever cool, but it was, I guess, more acceptable than telling like, hey, why did the Italian do this? Or how many Austrians does it take to this?
It's a great question. I don't know. By the way, shout out to Matt in the YouTube comments on the Sports on 580 YouTube stream, Roly Poly. That's pretty funny. I have
good
no
headline.
idea.
Good headline in the Warsaw Daily Tribune.
The Polish Daily American. There is a Polish newspaper in Chicago, I'm pretty sure. You want to see some like wild views on ethnicity in America? Go to the Polish American Museum. Wild views about modern day America. Anyway, I feel like every like Central American country, even some Western countries that had large waves of immigrants come over, they were at one point either treated badly or made fun of or both. Yeah, like
no.
Italian folks were not always treated the nicest at Ellis Island. Irish folks not always. Polish folks came over later, so maybe it was just like, there's no one to replace those jokes. It just lingers. Yeah, I don't know.
That could be.
I think my dad's relatives came over in like 1906, maybe, or went to the stockyards right away. They came over and they started slaughtering pigs immediately.
The other thing is the Polish jokes I remember. They're all predicated in like, LOL, Polish people aren't smart. Which, how do we know that?
Yes, every one of them.
How do we know?
It's all the same joke with a different delivery.
Yes.
I laugh. If I like really cared about my heritage, I'd probably be like, I can't believe how much you're insulting me. But I don't know. It's funny. I don't know. I heard a lot of those as a kid, like all the time. I thought it was funny. It never meant anything to me. Anyway, we'll get to our brief World Cup update again coming up tomorrow. I don't even know who's playing tomorrow.
That's a great question. Groups E and F are playing tomorrow. So whoever's in those groups.
Let's see. That would include. So the U.S. was in Group B. Yes?
Right.
So E and F will include Japan versus Spain, Costa Rica versus Germany. I would imagine Spain and Germany are the favorites there. I don't know how good Costa Rica is. I don't think Japan's a big soccer country.
Japan beat Germany,
Really?
Yeah, they did.
Wow. And then in Group F, it's Croatia versus Belgium, another Central European nation there, or Eastern European. And then Canada and Morocco.
Canada's already out.
Oh, they're already out, really?
Yeah. Canada and Mexico going home. United States, we're sticking around.
North American supremacy.
Eat it.
We should be the U.S. should get to take a host city then. From both of those. Next time.
Nobody above the equator in the Western Hemisphere is seeing us in soccer.
Like seriously, because 2026 is in North America, right?
Yes.
So one of the cities that was going to be in Canada should be pulled to the U.S. and one of the cities in Mexico should be pulled to the U.S. Like tough luck, Guadalajara.
Only fair, honestly.
That's how that should work. All right, let's get to American football here today and the Kansas City Chiefs. 3 new signings for the Chiefs this week. We have touched on at various points over the last 2 days. Running back Melvin Gordon was first. Then it was wide receiver Bryan Edwards. Then yesterday, it was defensive lineman Brandon Williams, formerly of the Broncos, Falcons, and Ravens, respectively. By the way, we have a brief write-up on this over at our website right now. It's the top post on the website, 580wibw.com. Head on over there, and you'll be able to read all about those new signings. Brandon Williams, I don't believe, has been officially announced yet. He's not on the Chiefs listed roster. They haven't made another move, but Andy Reid spoke about him today, so I imagine the ink is dry. Let's start with Williams, because I think two of these three guys, I think it makes a lot of sense. Well, not a lot, but I think you can pretty easily see where their roles are. We'll start with Williams. I think Brandon Williams, that signing actually makes a lot of sense. And if you hadn't even included the other two, I would have said, oh, yeah, that's a good move. Like, you can never have enough pass rushers. You can never have enough depth along your defensive line. Now, I don't know if someone is hurt, if they just wanted to try something else. They just wanted to stash him on the practice squad in case they need him later on. I'm not sure exactly what the reasoning is, but that's a useful piece. He is an extremely durable player. I believe the number is 123 starts in 9 seasons in Baltimore. He only played, I think, 20 or so games that he didn't start during his time in 9 years with the Ravens. Like we said yesterday, he's been with Joe Cullen for a large portion of his career, so he's back, knows the system, knows the expectations. That's a positive thing. He's not a natural pass rusher. In 9 seasons and 123 games, I got that backwards. It was 114 starts in 123 games. He's got 6.5 career sacks. Not an overwhelming total. Hasn't had a sack since 2019. One-time Pro Bowler back in 2018. He had a really good year that year. But this is just kind of a steadying presence in the middle. And again, if it's nothing more than depth, they leave him on the practice squad for a few weeks. You elevate him weeks 16, 17, 18 with the standard elevation and then figure out the playoffs from there. I actually think that move makes a lot of sense. And I think you can very quickly and very easily see a path to him getting on the field and making an impact for this team, even if it's just spot snaps here and there.
Yeah. Interior defensive line is one of those positions where you don't know how important it is until there's a game where it becomes extremely important. Yep. There's a game where you lose depth and all of a sudden your guys are getting washed off the ball and you're giving up 6, 7, 8 yards a carry. And I think the Chiefs kind of have an eye on who their playoff opponents might be at this point. Mm-hmm. And they are thinking about teams that they might run into, that they might not match up as well against on the ground. Now, they've done a decent job against Derrick Henry historically, but this could be a signing to try and keep Derrick Henry from running wild if they happen to meet Tennessee in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. This could be a sign that maybe helps against the interior run game that Baltimore likes to do to set up some of their outside stuff with Lamar Jackson. This could be something that is a factor in a potential Super Bowl rematch with the San Francisco 49ers. Like, when you look ahead to games that an extra interior defensive lineman could be a help, it's matchups like those. I think this is a move made with an eye on his experience and the possibility that you might be seeing some guys or some teams with some solid inside rushing attacks come playoff time, come January.
I mean, look at the team they're playing this week, right? With the Bengals. We talked yesterday about how their rushing success rate is actually surprisingly high this year, given the narrative that they're not very good at running the ball. That's the kind of team you'd like to be able to stop Joe Mixon when the weather is gross in a playoff game in late January. That seems like a matchup you would want to exploit if you're the Chiefs. So to me, I think this makes a lot of sense. It's not necessarily a super useful one for Buffalo because they don't really run the ball, period, and they really don't run it well when they try to run it. But for a lot of the other matchups, I'm right there with you. I think that would make a lot of sense. Next on the list in terms of path to relevancy, I think is Melvin Gordon. Jerick McKinnon's got a bum hammy, so his status is questionable.
Didn't practice today, along with Kadarius Toney, who was held out again, and Juju Smith-Schuster was ill, so he didn't practice today either. But yeah, trending towards maybe McKinnon being hindered by that hamstring, and that's unfortunately kind of his career narrative as he's dealt with some nagging injuries over time. That's why it was such a nice luxury for the Chiefs to kind of be able to keep him on the sideline until this time last year when they really began to utilize him more and he had fresher legs for the stretch run and he helped them out a lot.
But the nice thing about Pacheco emerging and being, if not a sensational, then a suitable starting running back who can carry the rushing load, adding in, you've got Ronald Jones who's around. You could use him. You don't have to use him. He's there and has been a NFL player for several years. And you throw in Melvin Gordon, who, yes, has a fumbling issue, but over the course of their careers, Ronald Jones has actually fumbled more often than Melvin Gordon. Now,
I believe it.
If you just count Melvin Gordon's Denver tenure, looks a lot worse. But when you go back to the Chargers and include his entire career, it's a little bit different. But I mean, you mentioned it yesterday. He's still got a little bit left in the tank. He's still got a little juice to him. He can pass protect, which is valuable.
He does do the things that Jerick McKinnon does well, about as well as Jerick McKinnon does them. By which I mean he can pick up a blitz and he can help seal the pocket for Patrick Mahomes and he can catch passes out of the backfield. It's a matter for Gordon of can he hang on to the ball before he is tackled? And that has been a difficulty for him, not just as a Bronco, but as you mentioned, throughout his entire career. I think he fumbled 6 times as a rookie. And that, I mean, that was a big narrative in his whole career is the struggles holding on to the football. But if you're talking about somebody who can go out and catch a pass in the flat, turn a screen pass into a big gain, or help pick up that third down blitz, what you're looking for essentially is if McKinnon goes down, it's Ronald Jones can do some of those things, and Melvin Gordon can do some of those things. So I think that this addition is Jerick McKinnon insurance. And unfortunately, when you have Jerick McKinnon, you need Jerick McKinnon insurance.
But it's nice to have that piece. So you can be extra careful with McKinnon over these next couple of weeks. I don't think right off the rip, the impact of Melvin Gordon will equal that of Jerick McKinnon. McKinnon's been really good this year. I mean, he has been all the production he had last year in the postseason and very end of the regular season, he's pretty much done all year. He's been a really nice player, save for that one fumble. I don't think Gordon will have that kind of impact, but he's also not going to completely take that away when he's on the field. So you can say, hey, Jerick, we can give you 2 weeks off and we can make it work. We can give you a third week off if necessary, and we can still make it work. So look, he probably would like to be in a spot where he's more than just Jerick McKinnon insurance, but given the unceremonious way he was booted from the Broncos and his pouty attitude while he was there, I'm sure he's just happy to be on a winning team, one that's going to beat the Broncos twice in the next couple of weeks, in fact. So I think that one still makes an amount of sense. I'll be honest with you, though. I don't get the Bryan Edwards one. Juju's going to be back. He's just sick. He'll be fine. He played last week after the concussion. He'll be all right. I know Tony is banged up, so maybe you want to make sure you just always have a big-bodied guy out there. And if it's not Tony, it can be Bryan Edwards. I liked Edwards a lot coming out of college. I love big slot receivers. I think that is the quote-unquote cheat code you can have on the field because opposing teams, what do you think of when you think of a slot corner? You think of a guy who's got good quick twitch abilities, probably your smaller corners. They're good going laterally. You put a big dude in the slot, you can win that matchup a lot in the middle third of the field. Unfortunately, Bryan Edwards has been pretty bad in his 3 seasons in the NFL. 7 games for the Falcons this year. He had 5 targets and 3 catches. He's just never caught on, and I'm not really sure where he would fit in that wide receiver room.
I'll say this for Bryan Edwards. He averaged 17 yards a catch last year.
That's true.
17 yards a catch. That shows, and not a huge sample size, but that's 34 receptions last year for the Raiders for 571 yards and 3 touchdowns in that mix as well. And that shows you at least that he's capable of submitting some big play receptions. Being a big slot target makes him a good third down target.
Mm-hmm.
The Chiefs like to throw quick game in the middle of the field between the hashes. They've done that with Juju quite a bit. They've done that with Fortson, obviously with Kelsey. Edwards could be another guy that you use in that role. Mm-hmm. Again, I think it feels like you're kind of buying insurance a little bit for your wide receiver core. Another veteran guy with a skill set that the Chiefs, I think, could make really good use of. But I mean, I'm taking the under, if it exists, on his catches with the Chiefs. I think there's some ability there. I think there's some maybe potential there. And maybe they view this as not just a this year thing, maybe a foot in the door kind of opportunity where he could be a part of the mix next year when there's so much in flux with the Chiefs wide receiver group going into next season with so many guys out of contract.
Get a futures deal on him this year and hold on to him.
Kind of, see what he's got, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know that he is going to make a huge impact on this year's team unless there are a bunch of injuries.
Real quick, where would you project these guys fall in the ranking of mid to late season signings for the Chiefs in recent years? Like, do you think that one or multiple of these guys will be among the most impactful, or do you feel like this is going to be more like I know Shady McCoy was signed earlier in the season, but he made one bad play and disappeared. His career in Kansas City was over with one fumble. Like, where do you think this would fall? Who's the defensive lineman?
Melvin Ingram?
No, Mike Pennell.
Pennell.
Like a Mike Pennell who was like, wow, this is an incredible street free agent signing. Like, wow, he was a massive piece for that defense. That's probably the good end of the spectrum.
Yeah, like that and Melvin Ingram are like the high end and the low end.
Ingram for sure.
The low end is like Josh Gordon or...
yeah, Josh Gordon is the low end.
Yeah.
Like, maybe he'll be something, and then somehow he turned into less than nothing.
Terrell Suggs maybe in the middle, leaning like... Probably,
I forget he was on the title team.
He was.
I forget about that.
T-Sizzle. He was on the Super Bowl team, yeah.
Very, very weird. I saw a picture of him celebrating in Miami the other day, and I thought, oh, yeah.
Like,
how about that?
Am I being gaslit? Is this one of those, like... computer AI generated images? Like,
yeah.
I made the AI make a picture of Terrell Suggs, Kansas City Chiefs. I like type that in and spit that out. No. Yeah, probably sub Suggs with all three of these, unless the McKinnon injury is something that's really concerning, in which case I think Gordon steps into that role and probably does an okay job.
I would think so. I think they can all be in there. I think Edwards would be toward the bottom end of the spectrum, at least of those three, just because you're right. Long-term insurance, maybe, but I don't know. As long as everyone stays healthy, I just don't see a fit for this year for Bryan Edwards. We're going to take a timeout. By the way, go back to our website, 580WIBW. We've got a breakdown of all three signings this week for the Chiefs. One text, by the way, from the 785, speaking of Polish Americans, The Jungle by Upton Sinclair, about Polish migrants in Chicago. Our text from the 75, a classic. That's one of my favorite books I read in high school. I loved that book. It's also what my grandparents or great-grandparents did when they came to America. Worked in the stockyards right away. We're going to take a timeout. Fitz is going to join us later on this hour for the Wildcat wrap-up. But first, after this commercial break, we'll play One Gotta Go here on 580 Sports Talk. Time to play some One Gotta Go here on 580 Sports Talk before we get to the Wildcat wrap-up. Real quick round of the game today. For mine, we're going to do stadium giveaways, mostly baseball games, not super often football, but some NBA basketball games as well. So your options: bobblehead, hat, t-shirt or other top, and then coolers and bags, things you can carry. One's got to go. Stadium giveaways.
Probably the hat, because I'm very devoted to the fitted hat, and most stadium giveaways are adjustables. And I don't like that feeling of my hair coming out the back of an adjustable cap, man. I don't know. That's the old baseball player in me. I like the feeling of a full fitted on-field cap. So that's my bias there. I'm obviously pro bobblehead. I've got a bunch of them from Rockies and Royals giveaway days on my desk here at the office. Shirts are awesome, especially like if you go on they have like the jersey giveaway night, but it's like super specific, and they're giving away like a retro one or a player that outside of that particular city nobody knows or cares about all that much. I still miss my Rafael Betancourt Rockies jersey I got once.
Nice.
Man, I miss it so much. I don't know where it went. Probably 2-3 moves ago I lost it, but man, I miss that shirt. That was one of my favorites. And then coolers and bags are like legitimately useful and kind of stylish. But yeah, for me, it's the hat, because they're not the kind of hats I like.
Yeah, I was going to go with the hat as well. As someone who wears a hat every single day, felt surprising to go with that. But I'm particular about the way the hat itself fits on my head. I got a snapback on today, in fact. Fitted hats, I'll wear both of them. But I'm particular about the depth of the hat. If it's too big, it just feels like it's huge on my head and it's constantly moving. If it's too small and feels shallow, I feel like it doesn't stay properly. I'm very neurotic about that kind of thing. I will plan to go to Royals games around what the bobblehead is, because like I'm not a fan. I like the Royals. I want them to do well for work purposes, but like I'm not dying to go see Royals Tigers. But if they are giving away, Alex Gordon and his dog as a bobblehead, I will go to the game.
No, I legitimately made a point to go to the Danny Duffy dog bobblehead.
Danny Duffy, that's
it was the Danny Duffy husky dog and his husky dog, which occupies a proud place of real estate on my desk.
Yeah, so I will make an effort to go to that, or even I've got the old Fox Sports Kansas City Royals powder blue jersey.
I got like 2 of those in the closet right now.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Hat, though, could go either way.
So this is going to be a reverse one. Got to go. You got to pick one that you like the best. Some sad news from the music world today. Christine McVie, best known from her work with Fleetwood Mac, passed away after a short illness today at the age of 79. McVie sang on 5 songs on Fleetwood Mac's probably greatest album, Rumors, at least their most well-known album. I would argue their greatest. We'll toss the one that didn't become a hit, Oh Daddy. She did provide backing vocals for one of these 4 songs, but you got to pick one of these 4. Don't Stop, Songbird, You Make Loving Fun, The Chain.
Oh, The Chain is the best song of that group. I like Don't Stop, too, but The Chain is the best song of that group.
Man, Don't Stop is hers.
Yeah.
That is entirely hers, as is You Make Lovin' Fun. She wrote that one. She wrote Songbird. She wrote Oh Daddy. She has a writing credit on The Chain and does the background vocals with Stevie Nicks. Lindsey Buckingham with the main vocals on that one, of course. But yeah, The Chain is a rockin' song.
It is.
Like, that is a really, really good song.
Yeah, I think I have to go with that one. Yeah. Even if it's not hers alone.
Right.
I feel like that's like the seminal Fleetwood Mac song.
Is it?
It's up. It's in the conversation, I would say.
It is a great one. I would still, man, if you're asking me to pick my favorite Fleetwood Mac songs, either that one or Tusk, depending on how I feel.
It's also a super cliche answer, the other one I'd go with, but Landslide was on my playlist of songs when I drove around having an existential crisis after I graduated.
How did we miss Landslide in our What is the Saddest Song discussion yesterday?
That is a great song.
Bad job by us. Rest in peace, Christine McVie.
Absolutely. We've got to take a break. When we come back, Tim Fitzgerald joins us here on 580 Sports Talk. It is a big victory every single time we get to talk to Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com for our Azura Credit Union Wildcat wrap-up here on 580 Sports Talk. Follow Fitz on Twitter at LifeOfFitz. And, of course, go check out GoPowerCat.com for all the best coverage of all things K-State athletics. What's going on, Fitz? How was your Thanksgiving this past week?
It was good. I smoked a turkey for the first time, and the turkey was delicious.
That sounds wonderful. I'm so glad it was so good.
Yeah, in fact, I just finished off the leftovers. Probably be in trouble with the wife for that, but I did. I sacrificed myself with a little barbecue sauce and turkey.
Oh man, that sounds good. How was the dessert array for this year?
Oh, my niece made me an apple pie. Man, she's my favorite niece.
I was gonna say, she a superstar baker.
Yeah, she's really good. She's really good. She made some other pies. I don't care about other pies. I only like my apple.
No, hey, I respect that 100%. Shout out. What's your niece's name, Fitz?
Sophie.
So, shout out. Awesome. We love to hear it. We've got plenty to get to with K-State today. K-State Hoops coming up this evening, really late this afternoon. That's why we're out of here early, and that's why Fitz is joining us an hour early, kind enough to be flexible with his schedule with us today. But first, Fitz, let's start with the gridiron. K-State beats KU, earns its way into the Big 12 championship game. Let's start with Saturday's win in the Sunflower Showdown. What stood out to you the most about the way that game unfolded?
Oh, that K-State just persisted against a vastly improved Kansas team. That team is just so much better in year two of Lance Leipold. It's kind of awesome to watch how far he's brought the program, but still pretty sizable gap in there between K-State and KU, and K-State played well enough to get a 20-point win. So that says something alone. But yeah, now that Lance Leipold is setting up shop in Lawrence for the foreseeable future, that's going to be a really fun series. But I thought K-State showed some really nice things. They showed that they have some issues on defense right now that they seem to have cleaned up during the course of the game. I think we saw the young safeties that have been thrust into action play much better. But I think it was good preparation for what's to come this weekend.
Well, and to that point, with what's to come this weekend against TCU, this is, I think, going to be a great game. And I don't know if I'd say it's a true toss-up, but K-State's got a great chance to go in and win this game in Arlington. And I think from a national perspective, a lot of people believe that to be the case as well. But that's secondary. With all the injuries that they've suffered, and now with a lot of youth at the safety position, we talked about it early in the year, how big it was going to be for some of those transfers, the veteran guys, to step up, step into bigger roles, and take charge in that secondary. Well, now with those injuries, how well do you think that young group can hold up against the vertical attack of the TCU offense?
It'll be tough. They're going to have to do a good job up front, making Max Duggan uncomfortable. His percentage of completions drops dramatically when he's got some heat on him, so they're going to have to help those safeties out. But losing a guy like Kobe Savage hurts in the run game too, because he comes up and plays, with such aggression in the run game as well as the pass that's really hard to replace. There was a reason why he was one of the better newcomers in the league on the defensive side of the ball, but so be it. That's the game. And if we go back to that TCU game, K-State just had a load of injuries through the course of that game. It was really bizarre. And they finished the game with, the whole back end of their defense seemed to be replacements. And, at least they'll be in better shape than that. And, getting Daniel Green back, who was injured early in that TCU game, Khalid Duke left with the targeting penalty. Those guys back should really help this team and support those safeties.
With that in mind, with that up front group that should be much closer to 100% good to go than they were in that first matchup, what do you make of, what do you like about this matchup for K-State defensive line versus a big and really athletic offensive line for TCU? Where does the advantage lie, and where can K-State maybe take advantage of some potential weaknesses from TCU, if there are those potential weaknesses out there?
Yeah, this is really the key to the game. K-State's got to be more physical along both lines. TCU does a great job of run blocking and pass protecting, and that's a big reason why they've been so successful. And so I think the defense probably needs to just come at TCU and show them some things that they're not prepared for, and take that run game, minimize it as early as possible, because that's really what got out of control. They couldn't stop the run game for TCU. They just kept bouncing off and bad tackling. You got to gang tackle a lot. So they're going to have to get back to some basics. And when you flip the ball around, K-State's offensive line also has to win this battle, because they didn't in the second half at TCU. And that's a big reason why they simply lost their aggression that they showed earlier in the game, and they couldn't sustain drives. And boy, the defense was on the field for most of the game against the Frogs.
Our guest is Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com. It's our Azura Credit Union Wildcat wrap-up. We do it every Wednesday here on 580 Sports Talk. Check out Fitz on Twitter at Life of Fitz. Tim, the Kansas State defense, really over the last 3 weeks, the story has been how much they've improved in the second halves of games. And even going back to the Texas game, really it's the last 4 weeks that the first half of games, there have been some struggles, but the second half is where we've seen a lot of improvement. I think Joe Klanderman and the defensive staff deserve a lot of credit for making halftime adjustments. But what can be done to make things a little tighter in the first half of games, especially going up against an offense that can run away and hide from you if you're not careful?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what happened with Texas. They were too passive in that first half, and Texas was so good with Bijan Robinson and company. They just opened up a lead at halftime that K-State couldn't overcome despite the halftime adjustments and improved offensive play. So you can't let TCU get out of touch. Now, the good news for K-State is TCU's not a great first half team. They haven't been all year, and we saw that when the teams played week 7 in Fort Worth. K-State got a big lead, and then here comes TCU roaring back. So if that holds sway, if K-State can, play even or get a lead, and the defense continues this trend of being so good after halftime adjustments, when honestly it's not just adjustments, they kind of bring out a whole new game plan. I mean, I think they carry stuff into halftime knowing they plan on doing it in the game planning process. And they were much more aggressive against Kansas along the line and attacking Jalen Daniels, that offense in the second half, and it made a big difference. And I think they'll try to do the same thing with the Frogs. Again, the key being you can't let them get out of touch. You can't let them get away. But Will Howard has shown now that he's at quarterback. He can match the scores. If you want to have a shootout in the first half, he can match that, and that's what happened again since he's taken back over following that Texas game. The offense has been able to score with anyone, and then the defense kind of settles in the second half.
Both of these teams over the course of the year have proven they can win high-scoring games and they can win low-scoring grinders. K-State's got that 1-point win at Ames against Iowa State. TCU's got that 7-point win on the road at Austin just a few weeks ago. If K-State wins, Fitz, what is it more likely to look like? Is it more likely that it's a high-scoring game, in your opinion, or is it more likely that K-State, if they win, wins a grinder?
Probably points. I mean, Will Howard and this offense can put up points. Max Duggan and the TCU offense can put up points. Both defenses are good, but I think the offenses hold the advantage here. I'm not telling anyone to bet the over, but I might. So, it could get very interesting. It could be very entertaining. I think this is such a great matchup. This is by far the most tangible and entertaining of the matchups. Maybe Friday nights with USC and Utah matches it, but it should be awfully fun. And it's hard to beat a team twice. TCU is good enough to do it. So K-State's got its hands full.
Looking at the overall weight of the matchup, obviously TCU's got a ton on the line. If they win, they go to the college football playoff. If they lose, they might be out, even if I think they should already have punched their ticket to the college football playoff. K-State, they win, they go to the Sugar Bowl. They lose, they go to the Sugar Bowl in all likelihood. So they don't have quite as much at stake beyond obviously the big prize of a Big 12 championship. Do you think that helps K-State at all? Do you think that maybe enables them to come into this game a little bit looser, a little bit freer?
Yeah, that's a good point. The flip side could be true. TCU could have a sense of urgency. So I don't know. I just think K-State is going to be even-keeled prepared for this game. They seem like they're in a good headspace, if you want to think of it that way. They seem to be really confident and focused on this. They're excited about the Sugar Bowl. You know it, but they haven't mentioned it. None of the players bring it up, even though it's obvious they're going to go there because it's a virtual lock. I mean, I don't even see the scenario where they don't go to Sugar Bowl. I think the most likely thing, and this isn't happening, they get into the playoffs. So, yeah, I think they're in the Sugar Bowl. A lot of pressures on TCU, and with our pregame podcast that I'm recording today, that'll go up at midnight and released on the site tomorrow. I talked to Brian Hanley, who's our football analyst, who was on the '98 team that lost the Big 12 championship and the shot at the national title, about what he would say to TCU. And he had really interesting input. He said, don't think of this as just another game, because it's not. We made that mistake, and it's not. Every mistake is magnified. Everything you do wrong is magnified. And when you fumble late in the game, it's magnified. And I thought it was really good advice. And I think TCU is going to feel a little bit of that pressure, but I'm with you. And barring a blowout loss, TCU should be in the playoff, period, end of story. On paper, when you take away the name brands here, they've been the best team. They've won the most games of consequence through the course of this season. They're unbeaten. And this loss in a championship game shouldn't cost them, while a school like Ohio State sits on the sideline and doesn't play the championship game.
So, Fitz, with all of that covered, then, who you got for Saturday?
I got the Cats. I think they're in a good space here. I think they're playing much better complete football than they were when they went to TCU. Remember, that was Will Howard's first adventure into the swimming pool this year, and he looked like he looked like the world's greatest Mark Phelps quarterback out there swimming in that pool for the first half. Then TCU came back and dominated the game in the second half. I think they'll be much more even in their performance through the first and second halves of this game, and I think it's going to be a great game, but K-State will get away with the win.
Are you excited to see Dan and I in the press box at AT&T Stadium?
I did not know that was part of the deal, and now I am very excited. It was just a game, let's be honest. But now that I see you guys, it's a Super Bowl.
That's kind of how we feel about it too, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, we'll just we'll have to get together and compare the snacks. You know, if they got ice cream bars and cookies, and it's tough up in the press box, folks. We got a lot on our plate. Quite literally.
Hey, I will say, I haven't made it out to, well, there aren't any more this year, but I didn't make it out to the Bill for a game for work this year. I know Dan went to a handful of them. There's a lot to live up to down at Jerry World. K-State's got the whole chest full of ice cream treats. I don't know that Jerry Jones is going to treat us like that.
Yeah, no, it's kind of wonderful. It's fantastic. And I want to point out that I had before the Oklahoma State game, I had a frozen Snickers bar. And then I went to the Twix for Texas, and I went for the Snickers bar against Kansas. I think we know what the science here is pointing to.
Hey, that is absolutely the right move. You don't break the trend. When you find something that works, you don't break from it. It's not crazy. It's just sports. We're talking to Tim Fitzgerald, publisher of GoPowerCat.com. It's part of the 24/7 Sports Network. You can find Fitz on Twitter at Life of Fitz, and he joins us every Wednesday. This week, though, an hour early here on 580 Sports Talk for the Azura Credit Union Wildcat wrap-up. Real quick, Fitz, before we let you go, did want to get to basketball real quick. What were your final, I know it's been over for about a week now, but what were your final thoughts from K-State's performance down in the Cayman Islands, other than the fact that they were playing in your local YMCA?
Yeah, that was quite the gym. Look, they're a brand new team. They're completely reconstructed. So to go down there, and I know the competition wasn't top shelf, but to find a way to win two really close games, get a game to overtime and win, and then rally to win a game against LSU, man, I think that's really positive signs about this team and how cohesive they seem to be already. They're a slight underdog tonight at Butler, which I thought was a little surprising, but I think we're going to learn even more about them as they play on someone's home court for the second time this year. I like that Jerome Tang's taking his team away from home. I like it. I think it's going to force them to grow up. And when they come home Saturday for Wichita State, kind of a big game, kind of a big day in sports for Kansas State fans, I think they'll be better prepared for the Shockers by going out on the road like this.
Is there anything you've seen from them so far this year that has surprised you, taken you aback? And I guess that could be good or bad, but when you win all your games, it's mostly good up until this point.
Well, I knew coming in they were going to be athletic, and they're long and lean. They're even more so. I mean, they play above the rim. It's a fun brand of basketball. But probably my biggest surprise is how they've gotten Marquise Noel to edit his game. And it's something we hammered on all last year. He could be so good if he could get rid of this and that. And Jerome Tang mentioned it at our press conference earlier this week. He was just so pleased that Marquise came up on that final play of the game against LSU and actually ran it by passing the ball to Keontae. So it's in the coach's mind that Marquise likes to keep the ball at the end of the game so he can be the hero. They got him to give the ball up, even though the night before he had been the hero because he made the big plays. He led a teammate to do it. And he's grown so much in his game. His passing's phenomenal. His shooting's been way improved. Marquise Noel's been a special player so far, and he's got to perpetuate that and keep focused on the team because that's what's making him great.
And I have to imagine that going into the year, we all thought, hey, Keontae Johnson has the ability to be the guy in any given situation. But I know it's early. There's a lot of basketball left, and the hardest opponents on the schedule are still to come this year. But it has to be encouraging that it looks at least a little bit like maybe K-State's got two guys you can trust in those situations between Johnson and Noel.
And Desi Sills stepped up. I know Naquan Tomlin will make big plays for this team. They got some dudes. And if they can hold up over the course of the season, not get overmatched with, a big front line, they're going to win games. I don't know how many they'll win in the Big 12, but this is going to be a really competitive team.
Tim Fitzgerald covers all things K-State along with his fantastic motley crew over at GoPowerCat.com. It's part of the 24/7 Sports Network. You can also follow Fitz on Twitter at Life of Fitz. He joins us every Wednesday for the Azura Credit Union Wildcat Wrap-Up. Fitz, thank you so much for being flexible with your schedule today. We appreciate it, and we will see you this weekend down in Texas.
When are you arriving?
We are getting in Saturday morning.
Oh, okay. That's good. You got a show to do. I understand.
Yeah, so
but I'll see you in the press box.
We'll spend the night in Oklahoma on Friday, and then we'll make our triumphant appearance coming up on Saturday morning. So we'll see you right as the game's getting kicked off.
Nice. We will see you there, boys.
That is Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowerCat.com. I say it every week, but it is the truth. For all the best coverage on all things K-State, Fitz and the entire crew at GoPowerCat do a tremendous job covering all things Wildcats. We're done at 4:30 today, so we've just got our 580 Sports Talk headlines coming up after the news, including the all Big 12 teams. That's coming up next. Hey now, half an hour left on 580 Sports Talk on this Wednesday afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero with you. We're off at 4:30, so really less than half an hour at this point, to make way for K-State men's basketball against Butler. We'll preview that game here in just a moment. We've also got our 580 Sports Talk headlines brought to you by Blue Dot of Kansas, which today mostly is going to include the all Big 12 honors, but we'll get to some other headlines quickly as well. Plus, we'll get you a quick final word before we send you to the K-State Sports Network. As always, the Big O Tires text line is open, 785-272-9429. And you can always chime in with your thoughts on our YouTube live stream. Sports on 580 WIBW is where you can find our YouTube channel. Make sure, if you haven't subscribed already, go subscribe to us so you can see when all of our live streams are going to go on. You can see all of our videos as well right on your homepage on YouTube from when we do post-game wrap-ups, high school athlete of the week interviews, our live streams, all that, and so much more on the Sports on 580 YouTube channel. We're off today, so let's jump right into it with the news this hour in our 580 Sports Talk headlines brought to you by Blue Dot of Kansas. You can go visit them online at blue.kansas.com. Dan, we've got the all Big 12 teams out for football in the year 2022. 26 different players between KU and K-State are being honored this year. That is an awesome number. That is a lot for both of these teams. We will start with a couple of the Player of the Year honors that go to K-State players. Your Defensive Player of the Year in the Big 12 is Felix Anudike Uzama. He is also the Defensive Lineman of the Year in the Big 12.
For a second straight year.
And according to the Big 12's website, that is the first time that a player in the conference has been named Defensive Lineman of the Year back-to-back years, or just two times, period, since the award was created back in 2006. 16 years, it's never happened twice. Felix Anudike Uzama has done it in back-to-back years. He is the fifth K-State player to earn that honor, including himself, Jordan Willis, Ryan Meller, and Meshach Williams. Pretty good.
Yeah, big time. And well-deserved. Maybe didn't put up as splashy a statistical season as he did last season.
Mm-hmm.
That's because they had to double team him on every snap. Otherwise, he would have, and then some.
Yeah, he was not surprising anyone this year, and he still had a fantastic season.
7.5 sacks, 10 tackles for a loss. Super year.
Real quick, let's get to the other individual awards, then we'll get to the KU and K-State players on the first and second teams. Your Offensive Player of the Year, Max Dugan. Yeah, that makes sense.
No argument here.
Your Offensive Newcomer of the Year, Dylan Gabriel.
Put up a lot of numbers, and I guess I don't know who else would get it off the top of my head. So, okay, fine.
Yeah, all right. Your Defensive Newcomer of the Year, Johnny Hodges from TCU. Offensive Freshman of the Year, Richard Reese at Baylor.
Yeah, good player.
Very good player. Defensive Freshman of the Year, Kendall Daniels, safety from Oklahoma State. Special Teamer of the Year, not a K-Stater. It's Darius Davis from TCU. Already got you the Lineman of the Year. Those are two K-Staters. Your Coach of the Year, amazing that this could happen in a year when Lance Leipold got KU to a bowl game, but TCU is undefeated in Sonny Dykes' first year at the helm of the program. So Sonny Dykes is your Coach of the Year.
What surprised me most about it was that it was unanimous.
I would agree with that.
Leipold didn't even get a single vote. That surprised me.
I would agree with you on that part, but obviously deserved.
I would have given it to Leipold because I think it's harder as those programs are presently constructed. KU's a lot further away from having been a 6-win team. TCU is of being a double-digit win team.
2014, they could have or should have gone to the playoff.
Right.
So, no, I'm with you on that, but it's hard to complain again when your team is in position to make it to the title game.
Maybe that's me being overly generous to the home teams, I guess.
Your first teamers from K-State. We already mentioned Cooper Beebe, your Offensive Lineman of the Year. So, obviously, he is going to make it on the first team all Big 12. Felix Anudike Uzama on the defensive side of the ball. Ben Sinnott, K-State has him as a tight end. The Big 12 gave him the award as a fullback.
He's a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B.
He's an H-back, really. But, hey, as long as he gets on the list, that's fine.
Hey, 100% stud, right? What
yes.
he's done this year? Yeah.
I've said it for a few weeks now. I know he's only a sophomore. He's a Sunday guy. He is an NFL player. He might not be a true tight end in the NFL because I don't know if he's big enough for that. He's a Sunday guy.
If Kyle Juszczyk can have an NFL career, like there's some similarities.
Oh yeah, a lot of them. Also, so those are your first team offensive players for K-State. First team defense, Andrew DK Uzama, as well as Julius Brents. Very cool for Julius Brents.
And very well deserved. The leader of that secondary.
Really good player. He's a really good player. There's a lot of NFL guys on this K-State team, to be honest with you. Second teamers for K-State. This is crazy. Deuce Vaughn is second team all-league. But honestly,
I can't argue it. I'd like to.
Kendre Miller was incredible this year, and Bijan Robinson is going to be the first running back off the board in the draft.
Yeah, might have been the best running back in the country this year. And Kendre Miller might have been second best.
Yeah.
It's hard to argue with.
Third.
Yeah.
He was that good. So Deuce is second team all-league. Malik Knowles, second team all-league wide receiver. That's a cool honor for the senior. Very cool for him. And kick returner Phillip Brooks, second team all-league as well. Not a surprise there. On the defensive side of the ball, you've got Kobe Savage. Unfortunately, he can't finish the year, but very cool for him. And Shawnee Heights and Topeka's own Ty Zentner is your second team punter for K-State. A lot of K-Staters got honorable mentions. Echo Boydo. DJ Giddens was a nominee for Freshman of the Year. Hayden Gillum, Daniel Green, Eli Huggins, KT Leviston, Adrian Martinez, Austin Moore. All of those guys were honorable mentions for K-State. A couple of the guys got nominations for individual honors as well. As for KU, 5 guys made the first and second team all Big 12 honors for the Big 12 this year. That in and of itself is really cool, no matter which team they're on and which positions they are at. Kobe Bryant was named first team all-league. That's deserved. That is absolutely deserved.
Yeah.
He was tremendous this season in his sophomore campaign. 4 second-teamers for KU. Jalen Daniels, the quarterback. We'll get to that specifically in a moment. Mason Fairchild, the Andale product at tight end. No complaint there. He was really good, especially in the second half of the year. Mike Nowitzki at offensive line. That's a guy who's got a lot of decisions to make for his future because he could go to the league. He could probably be a late-round draft pick, or he could come back and maybe improve his stock. And on defense, Lonnie Phelps, the transfer from Miami, Ohio, the junior defensive lineman. He is second team all defense. That is deserved. Lonnie Phelps was the best player on the KU defense this year.
Oh, yes. From day one. I mean, he hit the ground running. He had those 3 sacks in the opener and continued to, we said at the time, okay, yeah, it's 3 sacks, but it's Tennessee Tech. Is he going to be able to bring this against Big 12 opponents? For the most part, the answer was yes.
Yeah. Honorable mentions for KU, Earl Bostic, Kenny Logan, Devin Neal, and Dominic Pooney all were named honorable mention. Thought Craig Young might get an honor, but you can't nominate every single person. Okay, before we get to snubs or anything else, though, the quarterback spot on the second team is where there's a lot of debate right now among our local fans, KU, K-State. I think it is a deserved honor for Daniels. I can understand why you might go away from him, though, because his stats against Big 12 teams, he didn't play a ton of Big 12 games. They weren't as good as they were in the non-con. And again, he missed a lot of time due to the shoulder injury. Will Howard also did not play for a large portion of this season, did not start for most of the season, but put up really good numbers when he was able to play. I think there's certainly an argument for either of those two guys, even though they didn't play full seasons. They were the second best quarterbacks in the league. It is kind of funny, though, that Dylan Gabriel was not named all-league when he was your offensive newcomer of the year.
Yeah.
Would you have gone with Daniels or Howard?
I would have gone with Daniels. More of a body of work. I'm surprised Howard got nothing. No, not even honorable mention.
Mm-hmm.
That surprises me more so than Daniels getting the nod there. And look, I mean, they both played great. Like, they were both awesome. It's too bad you can't honor them both. But Daniels was legitimate Heisman buzz around Jalen Daniels 5 games into the season. I think that should count for something. Ended up playing in 7 games overall. What Howard playing 5?
I believe so.
I think those extra 2 games have to kind of matter too when you're evaluating the situation. So yeah, I would have gone with Daniels. It's not like he's a bum, you know. Hey, Howard was awesome, and there are some stats that have him ahead of Daniels. It's not like Daniels was out there playing sorry.
Well, and the other thing too, and I know what about just in Big 12 play? It's not like 2 of the 3 teams that KU played in the non-con were total bums. Houston had a disappointing year, but they're not a joke. Duke went 8-4.
Yeah.
That's a good Duke team. So, no, I think it was deserved for Daniels. Duke went 8-4. That's wild. They went 5-3 in the ACC, although that league kind of stinks. Anything else that jumps off the page to you about the honors this week?
No,
this year?
I think every name I expected to hear other than Howard and, as you mentioned, Craig Young for KU, I think we heard either first team, second team, or honorable mention. I did not think Felix Anudike-Uzomah was going to win Defensive Player of the Year, but when I go through that list of first team players, I mean, there are some other guys like Tyree Wilson was a beast, but he got hurt late. Jalen Ford had an awesome year at linebacker for Texas, but that whole front seven is, I mean, Ford and sometimes DeMarvion Overshone, who was also first team. Sometimes those guys kind of blend together because there's just really talented front seven. Felix was the one guy on that list that you had to game plan around week in and week out if you were in the Big 12. In my opinion, that's why he won it, and I think he deserved to win it.
I think that's I can really appreciate that level of respect because it did not always show up in the stats, but you watch the K-State defensive line, it's all about trying to stop Anudike-Uzomah. I mean, he was awesome.
That's what let Brendan Mott have a breakout year.
Yes.
Right? Because if you're doubling Felix, you can't double Nate Matlack or you can't double Brendan Mott. And Brendan Mott, I mean, he was a defensive player of the week one week. And I would wager most Kansas State fans did not know who that was before this season began. And he was a very pleasant surprise this year. But a big part of that benefit is you're on the other side of the defensive player of the year getting double teamed every snap. Double teamed and chipped.
That defense is going to be good again. You're going to have Matlack back. You're going to have Mott back. You're going to have a bunch of dudes still on that defense. It's going to look a lot different without Felix out there. And I know he's got eligibility left. He's going to be a first-round pick. So I can't imagine he's coming back. That would surprise me quite a bit. Any other headlines for you today?
Yeah, let's go continue our Blue Dot of Kansas headlines. Let's get to some Kansas City Chiefs news. First of all, a mea culpa from yesterday's show when I loudly, and it turned out wrongly, proclaimed that the NFL was not going to flex Chiefs-Broncos out of Sunday Night Football 2 Sundays from now. Yeah, they dropped that news late last night, but they are, in fact, flexing Chiefs-Broncos out of Sunday Night Football. It's going to be Dolphins-Chargers.
I believe that is correct.
Yeah, Dolphins-Chargers instead. So Chiefs-Broncos in 2 weeks will be an afternoon game in Denver. Also, we got the injury report today. It's a long one, but it's not a bad one. 3 players did not participate in Wednesday's practice. They are wide receivers Kadarius Toney and Juju Smith-Schuster and running back Jerick McKinnon. Toney and McKinnon dealing with hamstring injuries. Toney, of course, has missed the last 2 games. Juju is sick and did not practice today. Only one Chief was limited. That was Deion Bush, the safety, with an elbow injury. It's a long list of guys who are full participants, but this is how the league rules work. I will name the player and their malady, but all of these players are full participants. Ready? Here we go. Brian Cook, wrist. Joe Tooney, ankle. Trey Smith, knee. Carlos Dunlap, foot. Lucas Niang, knee. L'Jarius Sneed, calf. Juan Thornhill, calf. MVS, shoulder. Jalen Watson, hand. Justin Watson, knee. All of those players, full participants in practice. As for the opponent coming up on Sunday, Jamar Chase was a participant in practice today, as was Joe Mixon. And Chase told media that he held himself out of this previous Sunday's game against the Titans for precautionary measures, saying, quote, "I wanted to give myself another week of preparation for the next game." That, of course, being the AFC Championship rematch.
I love that both these teams pretty much just said, we're playing bums this week, which was not really the case in Cincinnati's regard because they put the Titans, who are good, but both teams, the Chiefs held everything back in the red zone. They didn't want to give any looks. Jamar Chase is like, I'm just not going to play. I was going to make sure I'm ready for the Chiefs game.
Chiefs are 2.5-point favorites going to Cincinnati, which reminds me to tell you that now's the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. Free bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Sign up with my promo code Lucero. You can combine your bets for chances of bigger payouts with same-game parlays, and when you win, you get paid fast on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So sign up today with promo code Lucero for your no-sweat first bet. That's Lucero. And make every moment more this season with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. You must be 21 and present in Kansas. First online real money wager only. Refund issues non-withdrawable free bets that expires in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino, LLC. Gambling problem? Getting help is your best bet. Call 1-800-522-4700 or visit ksgamblinghelp.com.
Other quick headlines from around the world of sports today. We gave you the little news earlier from the World Cup that we had some drama, but Poland has advanced through. Mexico was going to lose on a tiebreaker anyway, but then gave up a late goal to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
Como se dice choke artist.
So they eliminated themselves, essentially. Poland was going to advance. The tiebreaker, because they had the same number of points for the tournament.
Same goal differential.
Goal differential. It was going to come down to yellow cards.
Fair play points, they're called, where you lose a point, you get -1 for a yellow card, -3 if a player gets 2 yellows in a match, -4 if a player gets a red card. And the disciplinary record was better for the Poles than it was for the Mexican team. So Poland was going to go through anyway, even if Mexico had not given up a goal in stoppage time to Saudi Arabia.
That's very funny.
Oh, it's hilarious.
That's a terrible tiebreaker, but it's very funny.
France and Australia also through today in Group D. Argentina and Poland advanced from Group C. France and Australia, the Socceroos, advanced through Group D.
Good for the Socceroos. Any other headlines for you?
Yeah, 2 real quick ones from the world of college football coaching. Sounds like Neil Brown's going to get another year in West Virginia.
Yeah! Everyone else in the Big 12 liked that.
They're going to have to trust the climb for one more year. They hired an AD today, Ren Baker, at West Virginia.
Formerly of North Texas.
Yes, but it sounds like he's going to stick with Neil Brown for one more year. They did finish strong with a win over Oklahoma State in their regular season finale. Also had a win over Oklahoma at home, beat Baylor at home this year, but 5-7, no bowl for the Mountaineers. So Neil Brown will be back next year. And also UAB has chosen their next head coach. It's Trent Dilfer. Yeah, that one. Trent Dilfer, the former NFL quarterback who has been a high school head coach the last 4 years and has also run the Elite 11 quarterbacks camp. It's going to be the next head coach at UAB. They had a longtime head coach, Bill Clark, who built that program up, resurrected it after the university system killed the program for a year.
He should be in the Hall of Fame. He should be in the College Football Hall of Fame, bar none.
Bill Clark had to resign like just weeks before this year's season started. He has dealt with some health issues regarding his back. Under an interim coach, they went 6-6. Apparently, a lot of the players wanted the interim coach to be the head coach. The administration went with Trent Dilfer instead.
Look, I've seen that the positive spin on this is that the guy, Trent Dilfer, like, has no life outside of football. Like, everything he is as a person is football. And by running Elite 11, he's got a lot of connections, played in the NFL for many years, good X's and O's guy. At least that's the expectation. The downside is, like, dude, you coached a small private school in Tennessee. They've won a lot, but the jump to what should be a pretty competitive American Athletic Conference is massive, like gigantic.
Yeah, we'll see. But and everybody says nice things about Trent Dilfer. I don't mean to besmirch the man, but I don't know how much success he's going to have as a head coach. I have my doubts.
In the immortal words of Trent Dilfer, you can't lose games in the NFL and still win. We'll see if that motto sticks in college football as well. That does it for our 580 Sports Talk headlines, brought to you by Blue Dot of Kansas. Coming up right after this break, we'll get you a final word and a real quick preview about K-State basketball coming up tonight. We are wrapping up a shortened edition of 580 Sports Talk with a quick final word. Dan, you're first. Note on K-State basketball and your final word.
Yes, a note on K-State basketball tonight going to Butler. I'm a little surprised Butler is favored with just a 4-3 record. That's a little bit of distrust in what Kansas State has done, but I think they've shown a lot of toughness and the kind of toughness that should travel and be able to win a tough game at Hinkle Fieldhouse tonight. My final word, salute Felix and Udike Uzama. Go figure I pronounced Felix wrong of all the things in that name. Well-deserved Defensive Player of the Year in the Big 12.
For me, for K-State tonight, I like K-State plus 3.5 as well. I think Butler's going to be solid this year, but K-State's gotten a lot of rest after their physical, emotional tournament. I think that's enough time to recharge and get back in a space where they can find a lot of success tonight. So I would take the Cats personally to cover that spread. Meanwhile, final word for me, I don't know how much of an impact Brandon Williams, Melvin Gordon, as well as Brian Edwards are going to have for the Chiefs this year. But the more I've thought about it, the more I've really come around to, I appreciate Brett Veach going out and doing something. If nothing else, they're getting guys now nobody else can get. And true, at the same time, there's nothing wrong with extra depth as you get into the most important parts of the NFL season. That does it for 580 Sports Talk today. Again, we are off early because of K-State basketball against Butler. Pre-game coverage begins here at the bottom of the hour. We will be back and coming up tomorrow with a full show. Rick Peterson will join us to talk high school hoops. We'll talk to Mitch Holtis about the Chiefs and Bengals coming up this weekend. So until then, for Dan Lucero, I'm Brendan Dworzinski. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 3 until 6 on 580 Sports Talk.